Nina Hartley smoothed down the burgundy dress for the 100th time, hyper-aware of how the fabric pulled slightly wrong across her shoulders. The dress belonged to her cousin Melissa, just like the uncomfortable heels that pinched her toes and the delicate clutch that kept sliding from her nervous grip. Everything about tonight felt borrowed, temporary, wrong. The hotel ballroom glittered with excess. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light across marble floors so polished Nina could see her uncertain reflection. Her cousin Derek's wedding reception was less a celebration and more a display of wealth, each detail screaming money Nina's family had never possessed. Ice sculptures melted slowly near the champagne fountain. A string quartet played from a raised platform. Women dripped with jewelry that could probably fund Nina's entire year of community college tuition. Nina clutched her phone, stepping away from the crowd toward a quiet alcove near the grand staircase. The message from Mercy Hospital glowed accusingly on her screen. Her father's condition had deteriorated. They needed to perform emergency surgery within 48 hours. The cost, even after insurance, $50,000. Nina's savings account held $832. Her vision blurred. $832. She worked 2 jobs, took night classes, sacrificed every small pleasure, and it still wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Her father had raised her alone after her mother left when Nina was 6, worked himself to exhaustion to give her opportunities he'd never had. Now he needed her, and she was completely powerless. Nina? Derek materialized beside her, champagne glass in hand, looking annoyingly perfect in his designer tuxedo. You okay? You look upset. I'm fine, she lied, shoving her phone back into the clutch. Just needed air. Well, come back inside. You're missing everything. He grabbed her elbow, steering her back toward the ballroom entrance. Nina tried to focus on putting one foot in front of the other, but her mind spun with impossible calculations. 50,000. The number kept repeating like a death sentence. She barely noticed when her heel caught on the edge of the thick carpet where it met marble. Time slowed grotesquely. Her ankle twisted, the too large shoe sliding sideways. Nina's arms windmilled uselessly as gravity claimed her. She pitched forward, crying out as her knee cracked against the top marble step. The clutch flew from her hand, contents scattering. She tumbled down 3 steps before momentum stopped, landing in a graceless heap at the bottom of the grand staircase. The string quartet fell silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Nina lay sprawled on cold marble, her borrowed dress hiked up embarrassingly high, her knee screaming pain, her hands scraped raw. 200 faces turned to stare. The humiliation hit harder than the physical impact, a wave of shame so intense she wanted the floor to open and swallow her whole. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just stared, these wealthy strangers, watching her public destruction with the detached interest reserved for accidents and entertainment. Then footsteps approached. Steady, unhurried, confident. Expensive leather shoes entered her field of vision, perfectly polished despite the late hour. A hand extended downward, palm up, strong and certain. Nina looked up. The man standing above her was striking in a way that made her breath catch despite her mortification. Early 40s, she guessed, with dark hair silvering at the temples and sharp, intelligent features. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her father's surgery. But it was his eyes that arrested her, dark brown and unusually warm, looking at her not with pity or amusement but with something almost like recognition. "Allow me," he said simply, his voice deep and calm. Nina hesitated only a moment before placing her scraped palm in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong, and he lifted her effortlessly to her feet. She wobbled, and his other hand steadied her elbow with practiced care. "Thank you," Nina whispered, mortified tears threatening to spill. He didn't release her hand immediately. Instead, he leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear, voice low enough that only she could hear. You need help. I need someone authentic. 3 months. Nina froze, confused and startled by the cryptic words. He continued, still holding her steady. I'll explain everything later. But if you need a solution to an impossible problem, call me tomorrow morning. Before Nina could respond, he straightened and addressed the gawking crowd in a carrying voice. Everyone's fine. These things happen. Please, continue enjoying the celebration. As if released from a spell, conversations resumed. The quartet began playing again. The man guided Nina gently but firmly away from the staircase toward a quiet corner near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. What just happened? Nina managed once they were out of immediate view, her heart still racing from the fall and his strange words. He released her hand and produced a business card from his jacket pocket with fluid ease. His eyes studied her face with disconcerting intensity. Marcus Chen. When you're ready to discuss a proposition that could solve your problems, call this number. Nina took the card with trembling fingers. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, Marcus Chen, founder and CEO, Chen Technologies. A phone number. Nothing else. I don't understand. You will. His expression remained unreadable but not unkind. You need money urgently. I need someone I can trust for a temporary arrangement. We can help each other. How do you know I need money? Nina demanded, alarm cutting through her confusion. I make it my business to understand people. His tone was matter-of-fact. Call me tomorrow. 10 a.m. I'll explain everything. He walked away before she could ask anything else, disappearing into the crowd with the ease of someone accustomed to commanding rooms without effort. Nina stared at the card, her scraped palms stinging, her knee throbbing, her mind reeling. Derek appeared at her side, his expression tense. What did Marcus Chen say to you? Nothing. He just helped me up. Nina. Derek's voice dropped. Don't lie. Men like Marcus don't help random people without reason. What do you mean, men like Marcus? Derek glanced around nervously, then pulled her farther from the crowd. He's brilliant, successful, and completely ruthless in business. His wife died 5 years ago, and he's been ice-cold ever since. Whatever he wanted from you, be careful. Marcus Chen doesn't do anything without calculating every angle. But as Nina left the reception an hour later, climbing into an old taxi that smelled of artificial pine and worn upholstery, she kept the business card clutched in her hand. Ruthless or not, Marcus Chen might be the only chance she had to save her father's life. The city lights blurred past rain-streaked windows. Nina's phone showed 4 missed calls from the hospital. Her bank app mocked her with its pathetic balance. She looked at the card again, at the elegant lettering, at the phone number that felt like both salvation and trap. She had nothing to lose except everything. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., she would call Marcus Chen and learn what price he would demand for a miracle. Nina stood outside the glass tower at precisely 10 a.m., feeling insignificant against the sleek building that seemed to slice into the sky. The address Marcus had given her led to the penthouse of the most exclusive building downtown. She pressed the intercom with a trembling finger. A security guard appeared, checked her name, and gestured toward a private elevator. The ride up felt endless, her stomach dropping as floors climbed higher. When the doors opened, they revealed not a hallway but an entire apartment that stole her breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic city views. Everything was decorated in shades of gray and white, modern and pristine, like something from an architecture magazine. No photographs, no personal touches, nothing suggesting a real person lived here. Marcus stood by the windows in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He turned when she entered, his expression calm and unreadable. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. He gestured to a leather sofa. We have much to discuss. Nina perched on the edge, her purse clutched like a shield. Marcus sat across from her, close enough that she could see fine lines around his eyes, a weariness behind his composed exterior. He slid a folder across the coffee table. "This is a contract. Read it carefully before agreeing to anything." Nina opened it with shaking hands. The terms were outlined in clear legal language: 3 months as his girlfriend for public appearances only. No actual romantic relationship required. All expenses covered. Complete discretion mandatory. At the bottom was a figure that made her eyes water: $75,000. Enough for her father's surgery twice over. Enough to finally breathe. "Why me?" she asked, looking up. "You could have anyone. Why choose someone you don't even know?" Marcus leaned back thoughtfully. "Because everyone else wants something from me: fame, connections, money. You want none of those things. You need help for your father, and once he's well, you'll disappear without complications. That makes you perfect." The brutal honesty should have offended her. But Nina understood desperation, understood impossible choices. "What exactly would I have to do?" "Attend events with me. Dinners, galas, business functions. Act affectionate in public. Convince people we're in a genuine relationship." His eyes held hers. "I need to appear more human, more approachable. A girlfriend softens my image, makes investors comfortable. Why do you need that?" "Business reasons. The less you know about my affairs, the safer you are." That should have alarmed her more. But the figure on the contract screamed louder than her instincts. "If I agree, when does this start?" "Today. I've already contacted the hospital. Say yes, and I'll make one call. Your father will have the best cardiac surgeon in the country by this afternoon." Nina's vision blurred with tears. The power he held over her future was terrifying and intoxicating. "What happens after 3 months?" "You walk away. We part as strangers. Your debt's cleared, your father healthy. You never hear from me again." It sounded too simple. Nothing was ever that simple. But Nina thought of her father's tired face, of medical bills multiplying like weeds, of drowning while trying to save someone she loved. "Where do I sign?" she whispered. Something flickered in Marcus's eyes: relief, perhaps, or satisfaction. He handed her an expensive pen. Nina signed quickly before fear could change her mind. Marcus made a phone call, and within minutes confirmed her father's surgery was scheduled for the following morning with the top surgeon in the state. "Welcome to my world, Sophie." He extended his hand formally, sealing their business arrangement. A woman arrived an hour later, Patricia, a stylist who examined Nina with critical efficiency. She took measurements, made notes, asked questions about preferences Nina barely knew how to answer. By evening, Nina's small apartment was invaded by racks of designer clothes, shoes in her actual size, accessories that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Marcus arranged for her to move into his penthouse the next day. "You're my girlfriend now. It would look strange if you lived across the city in a studio apartment." He said it as if uprooting her entire life was a minor logistical detail. The first week passed in a blur. Nina attended a charity gala on Marcus's arm, wearing a midnight blue gown that made her feel like someone else entirely. He introduced her to business associates with practiced ease, his hand always at the small of her back, possessive and protective. She smiled until her cheeks ached, laughed at jokes she didn't understand, played the role of adoring girlfriend while cameras flashed. In private, Marcus was distant. They barely spoke beyond logistics. He worked late into the night in his study. Nina wandered the enormous penthouse like a ghost, sleeping in a guest room larger than her entire former apartment. Her father's surgery was successful. Nina sat by his hospital bed, holding his hand, carrying the awful weight of secrets. She couldn't tell him about Marcus, about the contract, about selling 3 months of her life. So she smiled and lied, saying a medical charity had covered the costs. 2 weeks into the arrangement, everything shifted. They were scheduled for a magazine photo shoot at a lakeside property Marcus owned. The photographer wanted natural, intimate shots, Marcus and Nina by the water, his arms around her, her head on his shoulder. It should have felt mechanical, fake. But when Marcus held her, when his hand cupped her face for a kiss the photographer requested, something electric passed between them. His lips were warm, his touch gentle, and for a moment Nina forgot about cameras and contracts and pretense. When he pulled away, his eyes held hers with an intensity that made her heart stutter. That evening, driving back to the city, Marcus finally spoke beyond pleasantries. "You did well today." "So did you." Nina hesitated. It almost felt real. "Yes." He gripped the steering wheel tighter. It did. They didn't discuss it further, but something had changed. Marcus began joining her for breakfast instead of leaving before she woke. They talked about small things, books, music, childhood memories. He told her about growing up poor in Chinatown, building his company from nothing, the ruthless decisions required to succeed. She told him about her father, about working multiple jobs to support them, about dreams of becoming a teacher that she'd abandoned for practical survival. One night, unable to sleep, Nina found Marcus in his study at 3 a.m. papers scattered across his desk, an empty glass beside them. He looked up when she entered, and for the first time she saw past the controlled exterior to raw exhaustion beneath. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. Nina shook her head. "The penthouse feels too quiet sometimes." Marcus stood and walked to the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. "I'm not used to sharing this space. It's been a long time since anyone lived here besides me." "How long?" His jaw tightened. 5 years. Nina waited, sensing there was more. Marcus turned to face her, and in his eyes she saw grief so raw it took her breath away. "I had a wife once. Her name was Diane. Cancer took her slowly, painfully. I was building the company, consumed by work, convinced I was securing our future. By the time I realized she was dying, it was too late to matter." "Oh, Marcus." "I spent the last 3 months watching her fade, knowing I'd wasted years chasing success instead of cherishing her." His voice was hollow. "After she died, I built these walls, pushed everyone away, convinced myself I didn't deserve connection after failing her so completely." Nina crossed the room without thinking, reaching for his hand. He didn't pull away. "And then you fell down those stairs," he continued quietly, "and I saw someone else who was broken, who needed help. I thought perhaps I could do one good thing, feel less like a monster. You saved my father's life. That's more than one good thing." "No." He looked at her, really looked at her. "I saved him to save myself. But then you moved in here, and you smiled at me over coffee, and you made this empty place feel less like a tomb. Now I don't know what I'm doing anymore." Nina's heart raced. This wasn't part of the contract, these feelings, this connection, the way her pulse jumped when he entered a room. The door to his study burst open. A man stood there, immaculately dressed, holding a manila envelope. Nina recognized him from business events, Trevor Walsh, Marcus's main competitor. "How touching," Trevor's voice dripped with venom. "But you should see what your boyfriend really thinks of you, Nina." He threw the envelope at her feet. Emails spilled out, along with printed messages. Nina knelt and gathered them with shaking hands, Marcus's face going pale as he recognized what they were. The emails were conversations between Marcus and his lawyer from a month ago, before he'd even met Nina. The words blurred as she read. "Lawyer, are you certain about this arrangement? Finding a girlfriend?" Marcus, "Yes. Someone nobody. No connections, no complications. Desperate enough to agree to anything." Lawyer, "And after 3 months?" Marcus, "She disappears. Just another transaction. Nina felt the floor tilt. Just another transaction. Nina. Marcus reached for her. She jerked away. Is this real? Did you really write this? His silence was answer enough. Trevor smirked. Men like Marcus don't feel, sweetheart. They use people and discard them. Nina grabbed her purse, vision swimming. I need to leave. Please. Marcus's voice cracked. Let me explain. But Nina was already running, just like she'd run from the wedding reception, except this time her heart was breaking in ways she hadn't known were possible. She'd been a fool to think 3 months of pretending could turn into something real. Nina didn't go home. She went to the small library where she used to work, collapsing into a chair by the window while tears streamed down her face. The night librarian recognized her and didn't ask questions. Eventually, she heard footsteps. Marcus appeared in the doorway, disheveled, his shirt untucked, hair wild. He looked like he'd searched the entire city. He sat across from her, breathing hard. That conversation Trevor showed you, it happened. I said those things. I was a different person then. You were that person 3 weeks ago. Yes. He leaned forward, desperate. But I was wrong, Nina. I thought I could control this, keep it transactional, protect myself. But every morning you smiled at me, every time you touched my hand, every moment together, you broke down my walls. I tried to fight it. I failed. Pretty words. How do I know any of this is real? Marcus pulled something from his pocket, a small leather journal, worn and faded. He opened it carefully, showing her handwritten entries. This was Diane's journal. She gave it to me before she died, told me to write in it when I felt lost. He touched the pages reverently. I haven't opened it in 5 years. It hurt too much. But last night, after you went to bed, I wrote in it for the first time. About you. About hope. He turned to recent pages, his messy handwriting filling them. I don't know how to do this. Nina makes me feel human again, and it terrifies me. What if I fail her like I failed Diane? What if I'm too broken to deserve this? But when she laughs, I remember what joy sounds like. Tears streamed down Nina's face. I can't be your redemption, Marcus. I can't fix you. I'm not asking you to fix me. His voice broke. I'm asking you to let me try to be worthy of you. No contract, no transaction. Just me, trying to be the man you deserve. The library was silent except for their breathing. Nina looked at this powerful man brought to his knees by grief and hope and something that looked terrifyingly like love. But she still didn't have an answer.